Hello and welcome. I'm Taki117 back with Taki Space Program. So, here is our Luna 3 mission attempt number 2. We are once again set up in line. I am going to be flying this manually versus automatically, simply because I have a little more control that way earlier in the flight. I've also set up my fuel flow correctly. So here we go, we've lifted off from the pad. Now hopefully I will be able to transition to automatic control once I perform my pitch over maneuver. So I'm going to go ahead and start now. I'm a little early, but that's okay. So there we go, I've pitched over and transferred to automatic control. I've also put in a negative pitch angle, -2 degrees, so that I will continue pitching down slowly throughout the flight. Here we go, my liquid fuel boosters are about to burn out. Of that. There go my boosters. Once again being destroyed by aerodynamic forces. Perfectly okay. It seems we've picked up a little bit of a roll. This is mainly due to these fins trying to correct, well, a little bit of everything. It's trying mostly to keep my roll at 0 degrees, but it's also doing a little bit of yawing as well. This is not an issue. It will dampen out as the rocket ascends, mainly due to decreasing atmospheric pressure. So far, this flight is going pretty good. I'm a little farther over than I would like to be at this point, but so far, so good. I am actually going to pitch up a few degrees just to try and raise my, oh dear. So the rocket has tumbled, which is fine. Am starting to fall. This is not good. I don't understand. Everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden, it's not. And I'm spinning rather quickly, actually. And I don't understand why. Up. So I have no idea what's going on. I don't know why this rocket has decided to perform like this, when at least in test flights, it performed perfectly, actually. Alright, so we are pointed up now. I fell really far. This is gonna be interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and terminate this mission and go back and do a complete redesign of my rocket, or at least of probably my whole rocket. I do have enough parts now that I can redesign my rocket, and I will be able to get to the moon rather expeditiously, and all should be well. So let's go ahead and just start completely over with a known good rocket. So, I actually think I'm going to put this on top of a Titan rocket, or my new probe anyway, instead of using something homemade. I'm going to call this Luna 3 Dud. Just make a new one. So I'm going to start with this probe core here. I need an antenna, of course. This is a long-range inter-system antenna. This is a short-range inter-system antenna. I'm also going to use 2 of these reaction wheels here. Scale them appropriately. There we go. I need some solar panels. Use these here. Need 4 of them. There we go. Actually, I'm going to put these there. And I'm going to use these awesome tri-external fuel tanks. They have monopropellant, liquid fuel, and oxidizer in them. 1 of each type of fuel that I will need for this particular rocket. I do not have... I thought I had it. Let's see. Oh, I do have it. There it is. The toroidal fuel tank there. The Agena rocket engine gives me 2,737 meters a second of vacuum delta V. But I actually think I'm going to use that engine. My thrust to weight ratio is a little lower, but my delta V is much higher. I am also going to put a dish on here. Whoa, that is huge. Now, this is a radially mounted part going on top of a satellite. So what I like to do is I like to turn on 2 of them. And then I'm going to match them up as close as I can. There we go. And then take my hand off the mouse. Take my symmetry down to 1. Very carefully place that part. I am going to deploy it to see how it looks. I don't particularly like that. So I'm going to use something else, like the Reflectron KR7. There we go. That looks good. Has a range of 90 megameters and a cone angle of 25 degrees, so it should be enough to cover the moon when I get there. Actually, yeah, let's try that. Need something a little wider. Wider still. Nope, none of those are going to work. But I can make a procedural fairing. Unfortunately, it looks like that is also not going to work. So it looks like this will be going on top of a 2.5 meter rocket. I do need a small decoupler, because that particular fairing base does not come with one. And then I also would like to add some struts to give it some stability. I add 4 struts. There, just like that. Then I'm going to put a this one will work nicely. Fairing on that. Call this craft Luna 3. And now it is going to go on top of a Titan rocket. So we have the Titan trans stage. This gives me almost 3,000 meters a second of delta V, which is quite honestly fantastic. That is more than enough to get me where I need to go. Just gonna go ahead and use this one, and then we are going to put it on a Titan rocket. So, here it is. Titan fuel tank, and the Gemini Titan LR87 twin rocket engine. Now this gives me a lot of thrust to weight ratio, so I'm actually going to drop that thrust down to about 75%. A little more than 75%, but that's okay. Put that on there. One there, and then one on the upper stage. And there we go, we have a satellite on a Titan rocket. Save that. We are going to overwrite that file, and we're going to build it. It's going to take about 3 days to build, but that's okay. That all of our staging is correct. And now we just have to wait for it to build. So, as always, we recondition the launch pad, and then we build our rocket and roll it out, and we launch. Now, of course, as always, we have to line up with the moon. This makes it easier to intercept when we get to orbit. So, unfortunately, I can't set the moon as my target until I'm on the launch pad. The good news is my satellite is not going to run out of power sitting on the pad because my launch clamps do provide both power and fuel. So, hopefully, this launch goes according to plan. So here we have our rocket sitting on the pad. Now, I've not flown this design before. This design is entirely new. So there's my target. Oh good, I'm only 13 degrees off. So the main reason I'm using this probe core is it has RCS thrusters, and it also has the ability to track different points along my orbit. It's one of the more advanced probe cores. So here we go, getting down to 0.25 degrees. Launching in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Now, purely for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to roll 90 degrees. The main reason I do this is so that when I pitch over, my engines are parallel to the ground. But really, that makes no difference, at least here. In Kerbal Space Program, the thrust vector is the average of the two. So as long as they are thrusting through the center of mass, your rocket will fly in the direction you point it. So I do want to point surface prograde. That initial large pitch was, I had originally selected orbit prograde, and so it pitched down greatly to accommodate that. It looks like I am on glide slope. Actually a little ahead of my glide slope. I'll pitch up just a little bit to slow that down until I reach about 10 kilometers. There we go. Okay. So we're doing good. We're accelerating quite nicely, actually. Set that to 0. That will pitch us down until we are in line with our velocity vector once more. Now I do also have almost 3,000 meters a second of delta V in my actual satellite. So, you know, if my second stage can't get me to the moon, the satellite can be deployed and it will take over. The first stage is not designed to get me to orbit. It is designed to get me most of the way there. It's mostly designed to get me off the pad. At that point, the second stage will take over to boost my aquaapsis to a good parking orbit. And then from there, here we go. Let's ditch this first stage here. Go ahead and point orbit prograde. There it goes. Catching the atmosphere in that open space, and that's pushing it back. Activate the second stage engine. And I'm going to put this in about a 100-kilometer parking orbit. The main reason for this is so that I don't have to time my ascent to the moon with the moon's position. That is actually Venus, not the moon. By doing this, I can perform what's called a translunar injection basically whenever I want. 99 and 100. Now I always go a little bit over so that when I cut my engines, the atmosphere will slow me down to my target orbit. So we're coasting. I am going to wait to open my fairings until I am above the atmosphere, which I am, and deploy the fairings, just like that. Now I'm also going to take this time to extend my solar panels. This probe core has very little stored energy, but these probe panels, or these solar panels, more than make up for the electrical generation needs that this probe has. I am going to try to activate the long-range inter-system antenna. Doesn't seem to like me very much right now, but these problems are to be anticipated, which is why I have the backup short-range antenna. And there's really not a whole lot of difference between the two. Let's see if I can get inside this probe here. Ah, there we go. And I am still generating plenty of power. So, doing that, we bring up our maneuver planner. We want to circularize at the next apoapsis. So we're going to create and execute that node, and it's only going to take us about 500 meters a second of delta V to do that, which is good. It's very serene in space, and you have these wonderful views. And it's nice. It's quiet. There's no sound because there's nothing to transfer the sound waves. So you can't really hear a whole lot. It's nice. There's Saturn up there, peeking out. It's largest moon, Titan. And we are successfully in orbit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set Earth as my target, and I'm going to activate that dish. Now, the reason I'm doing that now is so that I still have a connection back to Earth. So the moon is my target. I am going to do a Hohmann transfer to the target. Now, this will require some tweaking, because I must pass within 600 kilometers, but I must also return to Earth orbit. So I'm going to see if I can't bring this. No, that didn't work. Back this way maybe. And a little bit of retrograde. So what I'm trying to do is bring my flight path in front of the moon. Let's adjust. There we go. Now, as you can see, this puts me on a rather eccentric orbit, but it will complete the contract. So what I'm ultimately doing is I'm passing in front of the moon and using the moon's gravity to slow my spacecraft down. It is going to take 908 meters a second of delta V, which is fine. But we are going to execute that node. And return our focus to our spacecraft. So, the way gravity assists work is if you pass in front of the planet's orbit, it will actually slow you down just a little bit. Whereas if you pass behind it, the planet will pull you along and slingshot you farther out. There we go. Engines are firing. This is going to be about a 45-second burn. So what we're doing is we have our probe fly in front of the moon so that it's losing some of that energy to the moon's gravity, slowing the moon down just fractions of meters per second in its orbit, so that it does not get thrown out into space, but it will result in a much larger orbit. Which is why I have my dish pointed at Kerbin, so that when it gets in that higher orbit and it's out of range of everything else, it will still have connection. See my orbit adjusting here. So this is a tad problematic. My final orbit does not return to Kerbin at all. It actually goes on an escape trajectory. So I'm going to point retrograde. I'm going to burn... Oops. Okay, I needed to go the other way. So I'm going to point prograde. I'm also going to adjust the thrust of this engine down to about 15%. Yeah, 16% is good. The main reason I'm doing this is because it is very small adjustments that I need. Six. Okay. So, as you saw, I was able to complete the contract, or my eventual flight path would have me completing the contract. However, I was hoping to get a little closer to the surface. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen. So I'm just going to go back until my orbit. There. And there we go. We're all set up for trans-lunar, or for contract completion of Luna 3. This probe does have a science package. It has a Geiger counter, mysteries goo, materials bay, and telemetry on it. So I will be able to return science from the surface. So, watch that probe fly away, and until next time, I'm Taki 117, and remember, it's only rocket science.